Light is an optimistic young man who has always dreamt of becoming a successful adventurer, hoping to provide his family with a luxurious life. To achieve this aspiration, he departs from his modest village and ventures to the city, intending to enroll as an adventurer. Nevertheless, circumstances prove quite challenging for him. In this world, the goddess created 9 races, and humans are considered to be the lowest among them. As a result, they always end up being a target of prejudice and racism, something Light experiences as soon as he sets foot in the city. A Beastman adventurer, an F rank, treats him rudely, commanding him to get out of the way. Light can only apologize, despite the fact that he wasn't truly obstructing anyone. Still, he makes his way to the guild where he registers as an adventurer. The receptionist explains to him that all new adventurers start at F rank. She inquires if he possesses any gift that might assist in his assessment, and Light enthusiastically responds that his skill is named Unlimited Gacha, enabling him to summon various items. To demonstrate this, he summons his device and activates it. A fork card is then revealed, and upon its release, a fork materializes onto the table. However, the summoned object appears completely bent, causing Light to panic. He attempts it again multiple times, but only manages to summon a rotten apple and some moldy bread, which causes the receptionist to conclude he merits nothing more than the very lowest rank. Nevertheless, Light joyfully accepts and asks if he can undertake some work immediately. The receptionist points him to the board for easy tasks, but when she notices the boy's hesitation, she realizes he's also illiterate, which is common among humans. She explains he can undertake basic tasks, such as carrying stones or gathering firewood, although the compensation is considerably less than that of other quests. Light agrees, and following an arduous day, he manages to gather sufficient funds to secure a room. He still has to depend on his unlimited gacha ability for sustenance, but he believes he will be able to get by. Nevertheless, a group of beastmen conspires to set a trap, making it seem like he accidentally bumps into them. The leader begins to yell, accusing him of dirtying his attire, and just prior to them pilfering his purse, Light begs them to return his money, as he would have no place to sleep for the night. The wolf-like man just strikes him with violence, telling him that he needs to pay for the laundry. Throwing him into the mud, the beastmen depart while those passing by ridicule him, ordering him to go sleep in the filthy tenements alongside the other humans. In despair, Light feels his hope fading away until someone reaches out a hand to him. Instinctively, he grasped the delicate hand of a beautiful elf, only to realize he was covered in mud and quickly withdrew, apologizing profusely for getting her soiled. The elf, however, tells him she doesn't mind and assures him she won't hurt him. Years of discrimination made it difficult for Light to trust her words, but to demonstrate her sincerity, the elf knelt and embraced him in front of everyone. The boy is left speechless, and despite the surrounding crowd ridiculing her for lowering herself to assist a mere human, she extends her help and lifts him up. Behind her, a group made up of different races appears. They introduce themselves as the Concordance of Tribes, a unique group with representatives from each and every species created by the goddess, with only a human member absent. Garu the Beastman introduces himself, then Sasha the Elf introduces the others. Next, there's Drago, the Dragonoid, Diablo, the Demon, Abero, the Ogre, a Dark Elf, Nano, the Dwarf, and Santu, the Centaur. They explain that they were specifically looking for a human to complete their team. Shion further elaborates that the group's objective is to combat racism and establish a world where all individuals are afforded equal treatment and opportunities. Light can scarcely believe such generosity, yet he views this as a truly wonderful opportunity and chooses to join their ranks. They soon embark on adventures, but Light quickly proves to be the weakest link in the team. He constantly requires rescue from monsters by Drago and Sasha, who sternly warn him to be more cautious, as even a single strike could prove fatal for him. He offers his apologies, and Sasha even takes the time to examine him for any injuries, strongly recommending that he consistently stay behind the others. His other companions joke around, saying that Sasha is obsessed with Light and is overly concerned about him. The elf blushes, claiming she only sees him as a fellow teammate, nothing more. Light, however, feels useless since all he can do is carry the luggage. To cheer him up, Drago mentions that he prepares a delicious tea, and that in itself is reason enough to have him around. Light is pleased by the compliment and excitedly follows the group further into the dungeon. Eventually, they arrive at a spacious chamber featuring a single entry and exit point. They then conclude that this location is perfectly suited for putting their plan into action. Unaware of what's happening, Light starts making tea for everyone. That's when Drago approaches and tells him he's being kicked out of the group. Stunned, Light doesn't understand and asks what he did to get kicked out. Garu the Beastman explains that it is due to his lack of useful contributions. The rest of them began to insult him, labeling him useless and stupid, even Sasha, who now regarded him with utter contempt. One by one, they all humiliate him, not only as an individual but also as a representative of the entire human race, leaving Light completely devastated by their betrayal. Light initially thinks this is just some sort of cruel joke, but he's soon told that no one has the spare time to waste pulling pranks on an utterly useless piece of garbage such as himself. Confused, Light questions why they had been so kind to him up until that point. They coldly reply that their kindness was merely a facade, nothing more than an act. Drago explained that his superiors had taken notice of his unlimited gacha gift and had even considered that he might be a master. Because of that, they ordered the Concordance of Tribes to keep a close watch on him. However, once they realized his ability held no value and that he couldn't possibly be a master, they gave the signal to dispose of him. The one most relieved by the situation is Sasha. She admits feeling revulsion at the mere thought that, if Light truly were a master, she would have been compelled to marry him. The young man doesn't even understand what the word master means, but Drago ends the conversation saying they've already revealed more than they should and that they need to kill him before other adventurers show up. At that moment, Garou unleashes metallic predator-like claws and brutally slashes Light's face. The penny finally drops and Light grasps the severity of his predicament, understanding there's no escape from this snare. In a desperate attempt, he bolts as quickly as possible while the racist betrayers laugh mockingly and proclaim they won't permit his escape. Sasha fires an arrow that pierces his leg, causing him to fall and scream in pain. The elves mock him, declaring that the human screams are like sweet music to their ears. Garou decides to prolong the suffering, but Drago interrupts him, reminding him that they need to stage this as though it were a monster attack. Nevertheless, Garou prepares to deliver the final blow to Light, who can only crawl on the ground, clinging to his life with all his might. At that very instant, the ground beneath him starts to shine, unveiling a teleportation circle. Drago notices this and orders them to finish him off immediately, but before Garou can reach Light, the magic activates and transports him to another location. Despite his timely escape, Light's situation doesn't improve much. The random teleport drops him in an unknown area of the dungeon, and he knows that if he runs into a monster, it'll be the end for him. While crawling on the ground, he recalls his family and ponders what he could have possibly done to merit such a profound betrayal. He reflects on how everyone had initially appeared kind before they turned on him and stabs him in the back, and he finally understands that all their behavior was merely a facade. Consumed by a growing fury, he channels his anger into fuel for survival, vowing that he will exact his revenge and literally rip each of them apart with his own hands. But just before he could continue to curse them, he suddenly heard a low growl echoing from right behind him. Upon turning around, he spots a level 1000 monster, a beast that seemed to have sprung from the depths of a terrifying fairy tale, staring intensely at him. A wave of dread washes over him as he realizes the teleportation has taken him to the deepest floor of the dungeon, where his chances of survival were even slimmer than they were with his treacherous companions. With no way out, he ponders how he could possibly combat such a formidable beast, and his thoughts lead him to his one and only hope, his unlimited gacha ability. He starts using the device over and over, and suddenly, his ordinary skill transforms into something beyond his wildest dreams. A giant magic circle appears beneath his feet, and the device begins to undergo a transformation. Light doesn't comprehend any of it, but at the exact moment the monster lunges forward, the gacha roll completes. From it, a level 9099 servant emerges, a maid who, in a single swift movement, annihilates the creature. Everything concludes before Light even has a chance to blink. Subsequently, the maid draws near him, kneels, and promptly mends his injuries, declaring she couldn't tolerate witnessing his unblemished skin blemished by wounds, and thus took the liberty of restoring him. Light can hardly believe that he is now completely recovered. Right after, the maid asks for his name, and he tells her it's Light. To his surprise, she is overjoyed by his answer, and following the maid's code of honor, swears to serve him until death. Light is caught off guard and says that's alright, but he requests that she at least share her own name first. The young woman introduces herself as May, the perpetually searching maid, and explains that she was summoned from a super ultra rare card within his unlimited gacha. Light, in utter disbelief, finds it hard to accept that an individual of such an absurd level could have come from his ability. However, May requests permission to utilize her appraisal ability on his innate talents in order to uncover its concealed intricacies. He readily accepts, and May finds that Light's powers are sealed beneath a potent layer of concealment, which is beyond the ability of anyone of a lower level than her to detect. She reveals his unlimited gacha is far more powerful than he ever imagined, and that the outcomes of the cards depend on the mana density of the location where it is activated. May then explains that there's a class of reality even beyond her own, something no one would ever even dream of. She states that the surface possesses an exceptionally low mana density, but deep within the dungeon, the air is thoroughly saturated with magical energy, enabling Light to summon beings such as herself. Thus, she commends his bravery in venturing into such a perilous place by himself and without realizing it, unlocking the full potential of his latent ability. And he tells her that he's a loser who couldn't even get close to the dungeon by himself. He starts to cry as he tells her how his party betrayed him inside the dungeon. He complains, stating that they had promised to forge a world free from prejudice only to mislead him, and then he vows to take his revenge upon them. May then suddenly embraces him, affirming that while she can't fully comprehend the extent of his ordeal, she will gladly fulfill his every wish, making it clear that destroying those despicable individuals who hurt him would be effortless for her. However, Light tells her that she cannot do that, and it is not out of sheer kindness. He simply wants to take revenge with his own hands, but acknowledges that at the moment this is impossible as he is still very weak. He vows that he will make every single one of them suffer before he kills them. And Mei kneels before him once more, proclaiming that if he genuinely desires to grow strong enough to exact his vengeance, she will assist him along that journey. She says she believes in his potential, and all Light can do is thank her. But he isn't satisfied with just one powerful servant by his side and decides to take further advantage of the dungeon's mana-saturated environment. So, he uses his unlimited gacha once more, summoning additional high-level maids to establish a true kingdom, which will be the foundation for his ultimate revenge. However, that's where this video concludes. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and until next time. And from that point forward, 3 full years passed, during which our Light successfully built a magnificent empire, comprised of beautiful women, who adore him unconditionally. Whenever Light walks around in his surroundings, people treat him with the utmost respect and admiration, almost as if they were in the presence of a divine figure. In this period, he also succeeded in gathering even more maids of level 9,999. For example, there's a girl named Oyuki who is currently exploring the surroundings of the abyss and elaborating a detailed map. There's also Eli, diligently working on new spells for her master's personal project. Among them is Nazuna, a young woman who is powerful and highly skilled in close quarters combat, though she tends to be somewhat limited in other aspects of her abilities. Let's just say she isn't exactly the most mentally stable. The other maids even enjoy socializing with Nazuna, though they sometimes trick her into doing favors, such as asking her to investigate an extremely secret location. Being as naive as she is, Nazuna agrees without a second thought, but ends up in Mei's room. When Mei sees her, she asks what Nazuna is doing there. Nazuna replies that she was just patrolling the area, but then questions what Mei is doing in that very room. This visibly embarrasses Mei, as she has no convincing reply. Mei attempts to cover up her actions by claiming she was merely cleaning. This immediately raises Nazuna's suspicions, as the bed is completely disheveled, appearing as though Mei had been excitedly rolling around and sniffing the pillows. Mei, attempting to maintain her composure, states that there's nothing unusual about it, explaining it's simply her unique method of tidying the bed. She even comments that she could teach her, but that those are just professional cleaning secrets. This charms Nazuna, who begins to admire Mei even more. However, the girl also brings a message from the other maids. With much respect, they request Mei to stop monopolizing everything belonging to the master, as they too have the right to clean his chambers. They claim they don't wish her harm, but they genuinely hope Mei experiences a severe and agonizing bout of diarrhea. Nazuna, being innocent, doesn't grasp why they're wishing a curse upon her. However, Mei simply smiles and tells her not to fret, explaining it's just a minor domestic dispute. As a reward, Mei hands her some coins for her efforts, and Nazuna dashes away, absolutely beaming, making a beeline for the stalls that offer sweets and goodies. Indeed, that truly is her greatest delight. Later, she ends up finding Oyuki and asks why the girl isn't carrying out the inspection mission. Oyuki just meows in response, since she literally only speaks like a cat. In light of this, Nazuna begins to reply with gibberish and random noises, which profoundly irritates the cat girl, as the only person capable of understanding her language is Light, their master himself. The situation becomes even more amusing when Nazuna continues to insist on conversing, stating that despite Oyuki being summoned earlier, she is significantly more intelligent, mature, and potent, yet she also possesses a benevolent nature and a good heart for that very reason. If Oyuki ever requires assistance, she should seek her out. The exasperated cat girl finally speaks normally, expressing her gratitude and stating that she has completed her mission and already reported everything to Mei. Nazuna is surprised and outraged, as she realizes she could have been speaking normally the entire time. She playfully hits Oyuki before announcing that she's returning to patrol. Oyuki, meanwhile, remains confused and unsure of how to react. Nazuna then arrives at the throne room to check if everything is in order. She shouts excitedly, enjoying the echo of the place. However, she soon becomes sad when she realizes she hasn't seen her master all day. She finds herself missing him, so she begins to playfully interact with his chair, marveling at how magnificent he appears while seated in it. However, she's careless and ends up breaking a piece of the throne. In a panic, she tries to stick the piece back on and then runs away. Meanwhile, Light is engaged in a training session with a warrior by the name of Jack. The gap in their respective strengths is truly immense. Light has grown exponentially more powerful. After the training session, they head off to take a bath, and Jack praises the mastery and smooth flow of Light's movements. According to him, there are very few who can rival his master, even within the abyss, and as for the surface world, that goes without saying. However, Jack warns him that there might be exceptions. Light understands the message and realizes he must be cautious. He still doesn't know who he might encounter up there, but he is set on achieving his revenge, even if it means exercising utmost caution. Meanwhile, May assembles the four maids who had expressed a wish for her to suffer from diarrhea. They all tremble with fear, and May questions if they understand why they've been called, before she reads aloud the very words she had Nazuna utter. The four maids kneel before May, pleading for forgiveness, and May interrogates them about their motives for writing such things. Confused, they respond that they don't even know what prompted them to do it, but they claim they only wanted to alleviate May's burden, as she constantly overworks herself. That may sound nice, but in practice they cursed her and then used poor Nazuna as their unwitting messenger. They all realize it was a terrible idea, and May completely rejects their apologies. As punishment, she orders them to clean the hallway leading to the throne room without using magic. The maids attempt to protest, asserting that the hallway is enormous and it would be impossible to clean it by hand alone, but May remains resolute and unconcerned. She is about to ascend to the surface world alongside Master Light and desires everything to be immaculate upon her return. Back to Nazuna, she's admiring a set of weapons, completely mesmerized, imagining what it would be like to wield them in combat. She happens to encounter Eli and inquires if she hadn't ventured out to observe something or experiment with her magic spells. Eli confirms she did, but says she's already back because everything is going perfectly well, something that should be obvious, but according to her, Nazuna is too dumb to understand. This taunt makes Nazuna furious. After all, she already knows her multiplication tables. The 1 times 1 table at least she has mastered perfectly. As for the remainder, she still has to count them on her fingers, which ultimately leads her to side with Eli. The two eventually start arguing, exchanging insults and calling each other idiots, much to the amusement of those nearby watching the conflict unfold. Offended, Nazuna threatens to report Eli to Light, prompting Eli to recall that she had tea with Light last time. She then adds that next time, she intends to have dinner alone with him, and who knows, perhaps even extending the night into dawn. This information fills Nazuna with intense envy, as she too harbors dreams of sharing a cup of tea with her master. Meanwhile, the other maids, those who had previously cursed May, are utterly exhausted and complaining incessantly. They feel it's unjust to receive so many extra chores, especially when all they truly desired was some fairness. They say May has created a total monopoly within the mansion, as she doesn't let anyone get close to her master. They all deeply adore him, and are distraught they're not even allowed into his private chamber. Nevertheless, May remains their superior, and is far stronger than any of them, prompting them to even contemplate poisoning her. However, they swiftly abandon this notion, as May is impervious to virtually all venoms. This completely discourages them, as they realize they'll never be able to overcome her. Nevertheless, they continue to dream of entering their master's chamber, if only to catch a whiff of his lingering scent. It's truly apparent that all the maids have significant problems. One of them even goes so far as to say she would love to lick the master's used fork, which repulses even her most fanatical friends despite everything. Deep down, they all know they would do the very same if given the opportunity. Even so, they remain obsessed with May. They truly believe she has an excessive number of responsibilities and could, at the very least, allow them to clean the master's room occasionally. Besides, she's always going on about how she was the first one he summoned, but no one can actually confirm that story. One of the maids remarks that there was a 3-month interval between the appearance of May and Oyuki, the cat girl, which implies that both of them had alone time with the master during that period. The mere thought that they spent 3 months alone with him in an isolated dungeon fills them with rage and consumes them with jealousy, as they imagine all sorts of indecent things. Blinded by their intense jealousy, the maids once again cursed May with all their might. However, fate had a twist in store. May herself was nearby and overheard their entire conversation. She had been preparing to depart, but upon hearing her name, her curiosity was piqued and she decided to listen to the entire conversation. Outraged, she then approached and confronted them. Initially, they appeared genuinely apologetic for their behavior, but now it's evident that they are practically begging for even greater retribution. The maids fall into a panic, swearing their eternal loyalty, and one of them even goes so far as to say she'd be willing to be treated like a dog if it meant being forgiven. May, however, remains completely serious and unfazed. To clarify matters, May explained that for the entire 3-month period before Oyuki's arrival, Light had diligently immersed himself in studying the ancient writings to master the various combat arts. Therefore, none of the indecent activities they imagined had ever transpired during that time. Mei confesses that she had actually returned to apologize for being overly strict with the previous punishment, but witnessing such absurdity, she reconsiders her decision. She states that if they have enough time to gossip and curse others, they will certainly have plenty of time to clean the throne room once again, and strictly without the use of magic. The maids fall silent, terrified, but they have no other choice. 3 hours later, the maids find themselves back to scrubbing the floor and drying the air with their bare hands, grumbling incessantly. Suddenly, by sheer accident, one of them shatters the very same section of the throne that Nazuna had damaged earlier. Meanwhile, Nazuna herself is calm and tranquil, resting in her bed after an arduous day of patrol. Thanks to her efforts, peace prevails for yet another day. However, she's still sad that she hasn't seen her master since the morning. She deeply misses him, harboring dreams of accompanying him on his surface world adventures, fighting valiantly by his side. Still, all she can do is wait patiently for his return, and with the dawn of the next day, this very wish finally starts to come true for her. Light walks in while the girls are arguing as usual, and he is very happy to see them. However, he is not nearly as happy as they are to see him. Light unintentionally overspoils the cat girl because she resembles a cat, causing jealousy among the others and making them want to throw themselves at him. However, at that very moment, the same beast from last time appears. Fear grips Light, our protagonist, but each of the girls takes a stand to pulverize the monster. They won't forgive anyone who tries to harm their master, though just eliminating it would be too easy. They'd rather torture it and exterminate every last one of its kind in the entire world. Their auras and ferocity are so intense that the beast starts to behave just like a regular little puppy. Light then calms down and declares that this is quite enough. He no longer feels any fear at all, so much so that he even starts to pet the little dog. Afterward, he tells the girls that he actually came to tell them something. Mei finally managed to get someone to take the bait, which means they have located the person they were searching for, and everyone will depart for the surface world to go and see him. It's the very first in 3 long years, and his revenge is finally about to commence. But anyway, that brings us to the close of today's video. In another scene, we see Garou in the Bestial Federation, the official city of the wolves, where everyone treats him with great respect. He enjoys the praise he receives every day and sees others as mere insignificant pawns. While walking through the city, he sees a human boy rummaging through the trash and, without any hesitation, approaches to kick him and spit right in his face. Garou commands the boy to disappear from his sight, then proceeds to a bar accompanied by his pack. He generously buys food and drinks for all, boasting that he possesses an abundance of money. His companions admire him, remarking that he's an idol for lower-class folk such as themselves. Witnessing someone born an orphan from the slums rise to become the future leader of his pack is truly inspiring, and they can't help but look up to him. Garou, however, clarifies that none of this comes easily. It is necessary to learn how to intelligently utilize the instinctive perception that bestials are born with. Others assert that Garou's instinct is on another level, as even the Draconians concede to his formidable abilities. He explains it all lies in the sense of smell, the ability to discern decent jobs from dangerous or worthless ones, all through their scent. That's how he ascended to the top, only accepting the truly lucrative jobs, including a particularly special one from 3 years prior. Everyone understands he's referring to the tribal agreement and inquires about the exact nature of that job. Garou just smiles and says the Federation demands secrecy on the matter. The group then apologizes and continues their drinking, but Garou, in his mind, quietly remembers the incident, as that particular job was the most pleasurable of his entire life. All he had to do was eliminate a wretched human boy whom they suspected of being a master, and now he reaps the rewards of wealth and renown for it. Even though they never found Light after his mysterious teleportation, Garou is absolutely certain that he did not survive. Still, he'd like to know more about this supposed master that every country in the world is desperately searching for. He understands, however, that looking into it would be risky. While everyone is drinking, a woman named Mei suddenly appears, interrupting the celebration and questioning if Garou is indeed the former member of the tribal agreement. He confirms her query, and Mei then introduces herself, stating that she lives to serve Light as his most loyal servant. For some time now, she has been searching for her master, a figure of noble descent. Garou doesn't believe her story and states that she isn't fooling anyone with that kind of talk. Mei replies that she cannot reveal any details, which stops him from asking more questions. Garou reflects silently, realizing the world's great leaders must have already investigated everything about Light, and none of them ever mentioned a noble lineage. However, if the girl happens to be telling the truth, it could signify a substantial amount of wealth. Even so, he remains suspicious, and Mei explains that she has traveled the entire world searching for Light. She recently heard that he had joined a group of adventurers, but she also received news that he had died in the abyss. So, she requests Garu to accompany her to the last known location of Light. Garu cautions that such a thing is too risky, yet May opens a suitcase brimming with gold, causing everyone to fall silent. Despite his suspicions, he accepts the arrangement, asserting that money isn't the primary motivator. After all, Light was like a younger brother to him. Proudly, Garu proclaims that she is in the presence of the future leader of the Wolf tribe and that he will assemble his finest men to escort her through the perilous dungeon known as the Abyss. May smiles, grateful and with tears in her eyes, maintaining a flawless act to deceive him. Garu and his pack spend a whole month leading her to the Abyss, while she maintains a flawless act to deceive him, feigning exhaustion and helplessness. Believing she poses no threat, Garu promises safe passage, intending to dispatch her at Light's resting place. Upon arriving at the presumed site of his demise, Garu recounts that a group of monsters ambushed them, fatally wounding Light. He then regrettably fell into a teleportation trap and vanished, never to be seen again. May feigns tears for Light's demise, and Garu offers an apology, stating the assault was so sudden that no one could have possibly reacted. As he speaks, his pack quickly moves to block the girls' only escape route, readying themselves for an attack. But then, May ceases to feign her sorrow. Through her tears, she conveys a profound sorrow for Light, who was dragged into that foul dungeon only to be betrayed by a scoundrel named Billy, and beaten within an inch of his life. Garu recoils in terror, utterly baffled as to how she possesses such knowledge. Only the members of the tribal agreement and a few elites from each nation are aware of these specific details. He demands to know her identity and allegiance, suspecting her of being a spy dispatched by a rival tribe. May coldly replies that her loyalty belongs only to her master, Light. If he dares to insult his servant's honor, he will discover who is truly rotten inside when his guts are splattered across the floor. As she stands, her mere presence sends shivers down everyone's spines. Garu can't fathom why he's feeling such dread. He tries to convince himself that she is just a worthless human he could sell after he was done with her. But for some unknown reason, she frightens him to his very core. As he stares into her eyes, he suddenly understands that he is already a dead man. But before May can act, a voice suddenly emerges, and it's Light, instructing her to calm down, for Garu is his to toy with before the end. May immediately complies with the order, and the other bestial men are left utterly astonished to witness a human boy in the heart of the Abyss, a place where no child could possibly arrive alive. Everyone waits for instructions, yet Garu stands completely still, paralyzed by shock, staring at Light, unable to believe what he sees. Light then decides to reveal his face, presenting Garu with the worst possible sight. Confirmation that he is truly standing before his former victim. The fear dominating Garu swiftly transforms into fury when he realizes Light has survived. But the boy just smiles with a serene look and a calm voice, saying he's come to collect his revenge with 3 years of interest. The other bestials observe, perplexed, not grasping the situation unfolding before them. Meanwhile, Garu attempts to maintain his composure and forces a laugh, stating he finds it unbelievable that such an insignificant human could still be alive. With arrogance, Garu mocks him, claiming it's ridiculous for a level 15 human to appear here to exact revenge on someone as mighty as him, who has already achieved level 150. He laughs loudly, calling humans fools and saying he's never been more grateful for humanity's stupidity. However, Light also finds such innocence amusing. Garu is so full of himself that he's completely forgotten the fear he felt before his old friend. He doesn't even ponder how Light could have possibly survived that hellish level. To him, it holds no importance whatsoever. After all, they're merely weak humans, and she probably assisted him when he was incapacitated somewhere, which in a sense is actually quite true. Garu feels quite confident, as all of his subordinates exceed level 130, and he firmly believes it will be utterly impossible for Light to escape alive this time around. Thus, 2 of his men lunge at Light, only to be instantly decapitated by May. She sternly warns them that anyone who dares to interfere with her master's vengeance will surely forfeit their life. Light praises her loyalty, affectionately calling her a good girl, which makes her absolutely radiant. Then she proceeds to guard the door to prevent anyone from escaping. The wolves, confused, don't understand what happened since they didn't see a thing. Garu attempts to pacify them, adamantly insisting that they remain nothing more than inconsequential humans. At that moment, Lila provokes him, saying that he hasn't changed a bit in these 3 years, always believing humans are all weak. But according to her, Garu has never truly looked in the mirror. For Garu, however, it's quite obvious. Humans are just fragile trash, and regarding their power levels, every other race surpassed them ages ago. These harsh words spark old memories for Light. It was precisely because of this obsession with levels that humans ended up being discriminated against. But if he genuinely believes they're so weak, then why isn't he looking at those 2 heads lying on the ground? Garu, unable to come to terms with it, convinces himself that Light must have used some kind of artifact and is getting far too ahead of himself. Enraged, he commands everyone to charge simultaneously, yet Light effortlessly repels them with swift and accurate movements. He remains calm, serene, and even a little bored. He expected more from these little pets. This attitude deeply wounds Garu's pride, and consumed by rage, he decides to demonstrate why he should not be underestimated. He takes out a strange pill, throws it on the ground, and suddenly a gigantic creature appears, a level 500 Fenrir. His allies cheer, believing themselves now safe, but Light merely comments, with complete indifference, that no matter how loudly that little puppy barks, it remains utterly weak. Garu believes he's merely feigning bravery, attempting to conceal his fear, but Light, however, remains entirely composed. He's so confident in his own strength that he decides to toy with Fenrir, declaring he'll remain motionless and allow the monster to deliver its most powerful blow. Enraged, Garu issues the command and the beast unleashes an absurd amount of energy. Convinced the battle is over, Garu starts laughing, certain of his victory. However, when the dust settles, Light is found standing there, completely unharmed, merely complaining that his clothes were dirtied. The attack was so pathetic he's feeling second-hand embarrassment. Garu, in utter shock along with his men, simply can't grasp what is unfolding before them. The direct blow landed, yet he didn't even try to defend himself, and still he remains completely intact. Fear begins to overtake them. It is then that Light chooses to finally counterattack. In a good mood, he announces that he's going to show them what a real Fenrir looks like. He draws forth one of his cards and summons a truly colossal, majestic divine beast. With a single breath, it utterly obliterates Garu's pathetic copy. At this moment, sheer terror seizes everyone present. Garu himself is completely dumbfounded by what unfolds before his very eyes. There's no conceivable way Light could possess such immense power, yet the man calmly strokes the creature's snout, treating it as nothing more than a domesticated animal. Light explains that he could effortlessly defeat any level 500 monster, and to demonstrate this, he reveals his own power level, 9,999, matching that of his most formidable subordinates. This number is so preposterous that Garu thinks he's dreaming. Humans are usually capped at level 100, so that just doesn't make any sense. It's either a joke or some kind of parallel world. And doing the math, Garu realizes that Light should have aged in these past 3 years. But the young man reveals a special bracelet, capable of completely stopping the aging process. He declares that he wears it to forever remember the remorse, the disappointment, and the hatred he endured that day. Upon hearing this, Garu finally grasps the truth. There's simply no possibility of winning. It's like trying to fight against nature itself. It's simply impossible. His pride crumbles and he drops to his knees pleading for mercy. He claims everything he did was under state orders and that he couldn't refuse. He even asserts that he only bothered humans because his companions forced him to. Trembling, he begins to call Light his master, acknowledging he betrayed and almost killed him, yet attempts to justify himself by recalling the good times they once shared. In the end, all he can do, like a true coward, is beg Light to spare his life. Capitalizing on Garu's fear, Light inquires about the Masters and the reason for their desire to eliminate him for not being one of their own, a question Garu is genuinely unable to answer, as the information was never disclosed to him. Light asks the others if they know anything, and they all raise their hands saying yes, but it's a lie. May punishes them with death, leaving only their bodies. Garu grows more terrified. Light then poses another question. What would happen if both he and May were to confront the nations from above? He desires Garu to employ his keen instincts and assess their odds of triumph. He better not lie, because May has an ability that detects it, and if he lies, it's goodbye. With so much pressure, the little dog ends up peeing himself and speaks honestly. To him, they would have the advantage at first. No one could stop them, but they would still be just two people. Even with their incredibly high level, the countries have accumulated weapons and artifacts over the years. Alone, they wouldn't be able to succeed. This makes the protagonist happy, as it confirms what he was thinking. Still, he has more questions and teleports away with Garu using magic. At first, the wolf is terrified, and when he opens his eyes, he sees they're in Light's kingdom. Enormous, powerful beasts greet him like a god as he calmly walks to his throne. Garu is like a grain of sand against the tidal wave of power. This is the power Light obtained in 3 long years. Taking that into account, he asks Garu what he believes will unfold. The poor creature is utterly paralyzed, unable to stir. He's like Schrodinger's cat, both alive and dead at the same time. But that provides Light with his answer, and he resolves to repay him with agony and hopelessness far exceeding death. Garu has ceased to even fear for his own life. He comprehends they've unleashed a monster, one capable of world destruction if he so chose. With his dying breath, he questions if Light desires to ascend to godhood. He replies that it sounds beautiful. He likes the idea, but there is hidden information up there, and depending on the reason, he will either be a merciful or a cruel god. His talent could bring about riches and goodwill, or it could unleash death and widespread despair. Everything hinges on how the world chooses to treat him. But the fated moment has now truly arrived. He and his loyal allies are about to ascend to the surface world. And well, this is where the video concludes.